experience. And what was the moment you had with Prince meeting him, and what did you say? Do you remember? What did he say back? Or
yeah, the first time was when you and I were together. We went to Tower Records back when they used to have record stores in New York City.
right.
That was July 12th, 1994.
Yeah.
And I remember you and I waiting out in that heat, right?
Oh yeah.
To get inside, we waited almost 6 hours outside Tower Records. And you know, I mean, I always wanted to meet him. You know, if nothing then just to be respectful and, you know, kind of thank him for the music. And that's exactly what I told him. When we walked up to the table, I simply said, you know, thank you for all the music and memories. And he looked at me and he goes, my pleasure.
Right,
Signed my Vibe magazine, very nice, very quiet, very understated. And then we, you know, obviously remember we didn't have a lot of time because we got to, you know, get autographs from the whole band and Nite and Nona as well. But
right.
even in that brief moment, you know, it was, I don't want to say it was surreal because I don't want to, you know, overstate it, but it was just cool. You know, it was cool to meet somebody who musically has been very influential in our lives, right? But also just to meet him and just to give thanks and respect was just a great experience. That was the first time that he and I got to speak. The other times were very brief. At Soundcheck in 2002 on the One Night Alone tour at Lincoln Center. We chatted very briefly after the Soundcheck, right before Prince was going to go and get changed. He actually said after the Soundcheck, and the Soundcheck was a concert in itself almost, right?
Right. Yeah.
And he had said, you know, I got to go back and get changed before they let all the squares come in. But he didn't leave. He sat on the edge of the stage.
Okay.
And so people just walked up to him, and I heard them, they were talking about religion or something. And then I just said, you know, it's nice to see you. Thank you very much for this, you know, great time. And he said, you know, said a few pleasantries, and that was it. But again, still a very cool moment in a very relaxed and casual setting. And then the third time was when we were at Webster Hall for the Art of Musicology taping back.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
April 20th of 1994. And because they asked me to get on stage, I was standing right next to John Blackwell during the performance. We saw Prince kind of backstage before he came out and did musicology. But when he ended up coming out to kick the band off to do Life of the Party, which MTV didn't air,
he
came back to the drum kit and he was counting the band off. So we said hello to him when he walked back, and he said hi and he waved to us, you know, very funny, and then started the song. So the interactions and the encounters may have been brief, but they were all special.
Yeah. Have you seen those songs that we were there but have never aired? Have you ever seen any of those? The video?
I haven't seen it. I've only seen the official recording that was on MTV. So that was musicology. I think I Can Never Take the Place of Your Man, Proud Mary. I'm sorry, Sweet Thing. And Sometimes It Snows in April, which was obviously just magical. But the unaired stuff I've never seen.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be somewhere, but we've yet to. Yeah, one day we're all hoping for that. So my great friend, the Electric Man, J. David Silva, is with us. He is a music historian, and also, you know, him and his wife put together Coffee with the Queen on Sundays. You can check it out on Facebook, and we'll give you a link for that in case you want to vibe with the Electric Man and Robin, Soul Sister #1.
Appreciate that.
Yeah. So you know, talking about the Minneapolis scene, near and dear to our hearts, maybe we should give the viewers a synopsis on how you and I met.
Sure.
First met, which I believe it was 88 or 89, right?
Well, actually, it was 91.
Oh, 91. Okay.
It was 91, and it was at Cutler's, which was a fantastic record shop. Again, there we go, dating ourselves with record shops, right?
Right.
A fantastic record shop in New Haven, Connecticut. And I tell the story often, you know, because that's really how we met, and then we've been brothers ever since. But I remember I was at the bin flipping through the vinyl, looking at Prince albums and stuff, and Robin, my wife now, was next to me. She and I had only been dating at the time about a year. And I remember you walked up to me and you said, "You must be Jay Silva." And I think it's because you had recognized my brother, and we do look kind of alike, right? Right. And it was just a chance meeting. I had heard about you. You had heard about me through a mutual friend, right? And when you walked up to me, I remember thinking to myself, who is this dude? I don't know you. But then when you introduced yourself, I said, "Oh, Joe." I remember we shook hands, we exchanged phone numbers and things, and we've been off to the races ever since.
Right. Yeah, great times. And we both saw you. Well, you saw the Love Sexy tour in Hartford, right?
Right. Yeah, I saw Purple Rain in Hartford in '85. And I know you saw 1999 tour, which I could only dream about.
Yeah, in Hartford. Yeah.
Yep. I saw
place. Yeah.
The Purple Rain in Hartford, and then I saw the Love Sexy tour in September of '88.
And we never knew this till years later that we were both in the house at Madison Square Garden, the parade tour.
Exactly. Right. We didn't realize that we were there. So it's like a kindred spirits, right?
Right. Which night did you go? The first night or second night?
I went the Sunday night show, so I guess that was the second night. Right?
Okay. I went both nights. The first night was my birthday, so that was cool.
Nice, yeah.
And I've actually heard the bootleg recording on YouTube.
You
that
have?
entire show, yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, and it sounds really good.
You know what was funny about that show? Because I remember that obviously both shows sold out. And I remember I went with my brothers, and actually two things. When we were walking into the venue, there were literally probably about 50 mounted New York City policemen, mounted horses, okay? And I remember just seeing that show of security. Obviously, it was Prince, so I figured that's a big deal, right?
Right.
And then we went into the show, and our seats were actually back where the front of house was, where the soundboard was. And Sheila E. was standing right there in the soundboard. We couldn't talk to her or whatever, but she was close enough for us to see right there. It was like, holy cow. And the show, of course, was just amazing, you know.
Yeah. It was, you know, it wasn't an extended tour, you know, very few shows here in the US, and you know,
hit and run, right?
Yeah, it was the hit and run.
Yep.
And I did hear something that maybe it was Roy Bennett was talking about the lighting on that tour.
Mm-hmm.
That it was, you know, was one of the least expansive or extensive lights. I guess he wasn't so happy with it.
Right.
That sometimes you go and look at the stage and everything was covered dark and you couldn't see anything.
Right. It seems very sparse. It seems very spare. And I remember hearing the same thing. And of course, you know, based on, you know, the extravagancies of, you know, the 1999 tour, which he did a great job with the Venetian blinds and obviously the pole and, you know, the heart that lit up. But then you went to the Purple Rain tour, which was just for that time over the top, you know, the bathtub and, you know, the bed again, which I know he used in 1999. And then it was very, very stripped down for the parade tour, the hit and run tour. So, you know, again, I can certainly see what Roy was thinking and saying.
Yeah. Right. So let's get into your childhood, getting into music.
Sure.
As far as do you remember? I mean, we're around this. You're younger than me, but roughly the same era. Growing up, listening to music. Did you listen on AM radio at all?
I did. So you know, I grew up in a neighborhood that, you know, had a mix of all races and all genres. So, you know, we were, you know, it didn't matter what color you were. You know, we all just were there, right? And we grew up. You know, I grew up listening to AM radio. And then, you know, I graduated to FM radio. But during that time, it was always, you know, there was never such thing in my household as just black music or just white music. It was just music. So my father was into, you know, the big band and the standards and the jazz, the Tony Bennett's, Frank Sinatra's. My mother was into Neil Diamond, you know, and a lot of some of the older groups, you know, Looking Glass and some of those, you know, 70s groups, Car Wash and things like that. You know? And then, so we really had exposure to all kinds of music. And that's really the way I grew up. So, you know, I've been, you know, I'm a fan of music first and foremost. And I think that's why I graduated to Prince and the Minneapolis sound, because Prince refused to be pigeonholed. He wasn't going to be a black artist. He wasn't going to be a white artist or a funk artist or a rock artist. He did them all. And so for me, it was like almost like a natural fit, because I grew up listening to heavy metal and funk and rap and rock, you know, and pop. So, you know, Prince played all those types of music. A lot of his groups played all those types of music. So that's really what drew me to him when I saw him, because he wasn't just one thing. So it was almost like a fit into how I grew up.